Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show. I'm Mike Daggs. He's Gerald Smith. Behind the scenes, our production crew, Cameron Irvine and Mexico City Aztecs tight end Ron Haynes. Yes, every time you're going to hear it. We welcome you to week 3 of season 26 here in the Simulation Football League. Gerald, I took a early vacation this season. We were off last week. Skippy thought that we had died or something, but we're here. We're alive. We're
Well,
well.
I don't know. You see, I'm all unkept. Maybe I was
Yeah,
dying. I just didn't.
you're looking homeless, but you're here, and that's
Yeah,
all that matters.
I felt homeless. We was off last week. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do.
Well, we're here. We're back. We're ready to break down what was week 2, even though we missed it, but we can break it down anyway and get looking into week 3 in what's been an exciting season so far. Let's talk about some of the things that happened last week because there was a lot of exciting games. There was a couple of blowouts in here too, though. Things started off with Minnesota and Miami. That would have been the game that we would have called if I didn't decide to ditch the cold weather and try to seek some warmth
And
down
you
south.
did.
Florida was the only state in the entire country that decided to skip that whole cold
It was
streak.
like 80 degrees.
Yeah, that's
And
where
it
I
was
went.
like a thing. So not only were you in the warmer weather, I had my brother was in there too, in Orlando as well as you. Bro, it's 83 degrees. I'm
It's
like,
beautiful.
yeah, go kick rocks, dude.
I kicked rocks too. It was great with sandals. Minnesota at Miami. Minnesota, nice start to the season, 2-0. Absolutely crushed Miami. The 0-2 Stingrays, their home opener, a little bit of a disappointment for them. 34-7, they lost that one. The Anchorage Wolves headed into Lexington. That was a really close game. Fun, exciting one. 24-23. Lexington squeaks away with a win.
Yeah, look, and they got it done. They didn't look so good in week one, and guess what? They came back right here against a 1-0 Anchorage team, and they were able to pull it out. Now on the surface, we didn't pick the games, but I was like, I would not have picked Lexington
I
to win
wouldn't have
that
either.
game, but they pulled it out. They
I
looked
wouldn't have
pretty
either.
decent.
Yeah, we would have both lost that one. Washington at Los Angeles. We're going to talk about both of these teams in a little bit individually, but 24-21, Los Angeles gets the win, 2-0 on the season.
Believe it or not, Los Angeles. I'm gonna touch on them a lot more
We
later
will.
on whenever we talk about them. But good, it was a good game as well.
It was.
Another good game.
I know you picked Oklahoma City in week 1. You wanted to have some faith in the Renegades. I think everybody was hoping. Everybody wanted to have some faith in the Renegades, except for whoever their opponent was. But of course, they played Washington in week 1. But Arizona at Oklahoma City, and that game looked like you would have expected it to look last season. 45-3. Arizona just crushed
Yeah,
them.
it's been bad. The first
Yeah.
2 weeks for OKC's been bad. Had high hopes for them, getting new people in and everything else. It has not gone well for them at all. They got some serious problems early on. They need to fix something.
Yeah, one of the really great games of week 2, Vancouver at Chicago. I thought Chicago was going to squeak out the win, but 23-22, Vancouver gets it with a walk-off touchdown with time expired.
And it was crazy how it ended up shaking out too. I'm like, man, they're going to win, and the defending champs are going to lose in week 2. And to Chicago team who was so up and down, and they just got rolled in the playoffs
Yeah,
against defending champs. But I thought they had it. They
thought
just
they
let
did
it
too.
slip away at the last second there.
Speaking of another walk-off touchdown game, how about those Pittsburgh Riverhogs? They got the win over the Albuquerque Adams on a walk-off pick 6.
And guess what? Louisiana North, as I call them, came through it in dramatic fashion.
Sure did.
I thought they were going to give that game away, but they came through right there, pick 6 right at the end. I know it's 11, point difference between the two, but guess what? It was not that way
Yeah.
when it was fourth down.
That's a
few seconds
14-point
left,
swing right there.
right? And they
So-
were and Albuquerque was at the 2, and Pittsburgh closed the door.
Another 1-point game. DC Dragons take down my beloved Mexico City Aztecs. That was such a close one. It was a tough game. 2 great teams and a very close outcome. And then we closed out the week with 2 overtime games back to back. Fort Worth Toros getting the 3-point win over the Bossier City Steamers, and Florida 0-2, kind of like you had called it at the beginning of the season. 19-16 in a great game against the Headhunters. That was the week that was week 2, and let's just list them real quick. We've got some undefeated teams here still after the first couple of weeks. Teams that have already played 2 games and won them both: Vancouver Legion, Minnesota Legend, DC Dragons, and yeah, that's right, the Los Angeles Lycans. Detroit Maulers, Birmingham Hellhounds, Fort Worth Toros, and the Houston Headhunters are all currently 1-0. That's who sits up top in the top 8 of the standings right now here in this 21 team league that we've got going on. So, without further ado, Gerald, I'm really excited to get back into this. Ron Haynes, of course, put together some great video clips for us, and we once again get to start spotlighting some really key players. I would have loved to have spotlighted some people in week 1, but weren't able to do that. But here we are in week 2. So without further ado, let's see who the offensive player of the week for week 2 is. Drum roll, please. Offensive player of the week, season 26, week 2, none other than Minnesota legend, wide receiver Deezer Powell. He had an absolutely fantastic game, Gerald. 13 catches, 137 yards. He averaged 11 yards per reception, and he did have himself a touchdown. As with many of his catches, look at across the middle for a first down. You know, he was finding ways to get open and just making big plays like you need a wide receiver to do. This was his longest reception of the game. And watch how he jammed the defender. Usually the defender has to jam the receiver, and that's how the play is broken up. No, Powell's like, I'm just going to steamroll this guy, shove him back, throw him off his balance, and get myself that catch. So another catch here, 9-yarder. This was a reception, got the first down inside the 10-yard line. Seemed just lined up down at the bottom. Almost was able to score if he was able to break away from that one tackle, but not able to do so. And another 8-yard gain. You'll be able to see, he's been lining up at the top. He's lined up at the bottom. Now he's lined up in the slot. So he's able to move all around the field, and it doesn't really matter where he's lining up. He's able to find that mismatch and find ways to make big plays. Lines up in the bunch this time to cut across. Now into the second quarter we go. Sheds a tackle and gets himself another first down. And that was a big part of this game as well. I don't like to always highlight people that have, like, say, he has 137 yards and his long was 90 on the day. So the other 12 receptions were all nothing. No, he's averaging a first down per catch. So you just see him finding ways to get open time and time and time again. And all of these highlights, 14 yards, 20 yards. He had a 9-yarder and an 8-yarder. Those were some of his shorter catches on the day. Then 12 yards, 14 yards, another 12 yards. His touchdown was the shortest one of the entire game. We'll see that one in a little bit. But, he's able to just blow past linebackers and get, another first down on the play. And, tight coverage. It's good coverage. Doesn't matter. Powell's able to find a way to get it done. Already 116 yards at that point. Here we go, 4 yards out, lined up at the top, jams that receiver or the defender again, finds his way to get open, gets the catch, keeps his feet from going out of the back of the end zone, gets that touchdown. And that's just how this guy's getting it done. All over the field. And Gerald, this, we were talking about it before the show started. This is somebody who we really feel has really helped drive Minnesota to get to this 2-0 start that they have on the season so far. Through only 2 games, he's got 19 receptions. There's some receivers that are going to go half the season before they get 19 receptions. He's got it in 2 games. That's number 1 in the league. He's got 199 yards on the season so far. That is 5th best in the league. He's averaging right now between, obviously 199 yards, 2 games. You can do the math. We'll even round it up, 100 yards per game.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And 4 touchdowns. He only had this last week. He had 3 the week before. Number 1 in the league as far as receivers with touchdowns. So Deezer Powell, player of the week. Might have even got it in week 1 if we had looked. 3 touchdowns and had hey, let's do the math on that, about 75 yards, and
yep,
you still get 3 touchdowns on like 6 catches. Pretty darn good stats.
Look, and I couldn't agree more. He looked like vintage. I'm gonna call him vintage Deezer Powell, right? Yeah. Because all in recent memory, when he got Minnesota, he hasn't been that breakout star that he was when he played for the New Orleans Pharaohs, when they were chucking the ball with Xander Gold and everything. Dude, they were throwing the ball all over the place back then. Here. So, but that's the thing, dude. He looks just as dominant, even just so many seasons later. So, if those, you need to go back and watch some of those games when the Pharaohs were playing and everything else, and Deezer Power to Xander, it was insane. He was just lighting, stat sheet up. That's what it looks like right here. And this is what Minnesota maybe liked last season, because they didn't play so well last season. So, look, coming there, well deserved for him, but to start the season. 19 receptions, and has his team to a 2-0 start.
2-0
Can ask for
start.
nothing more.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Who do you got for defense? Let's
All
take a
right,
look at the
so
defensive player.
we're going to see who the defensive player spotlight is for me this week. And and you'll see this player here, well deserved, right? So here it is, none other than Pittsburgh Riverhawks, Louisiana North linebacker number 44, Doug Day. On the day, he ended up having 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 3 assists, 2 pass defense, 1 interception. You're going to see what that 1 interception was right there. You're going to see on this first play, shoots the gap right there, stuffed the running back for absolutely no gain whatsoever. And this is the thing, Mike. I like the eye test stuff right here. Even though players do not make the tackle, they make an impact right there. Gets in there, slows the play down, and has his teammate come right behind him and make the tackle. That's what playmakers do right there. Always in the picture, doing what they need to do. Doug Day, again, covering the screen pass in the flats really well from his linebacker position. Used to be he was a linebacker turned DB. Now back to linebacker. He can play all over the field if you need him to. And right here again, look at the distance between the two right here. Closes it down, makes a tackle, doesn't get past him, knocks him down, sure tackler, and that's why he's been so decent. That's why they got him at linebacker here, And again, plays the flats really well and gets a TFL. Just goes right through it. They get people on people, frees up Doug Day to make the tackle and being able to bring him down. So this is how you want your linebackers to play. Similar like this. And what he's doing. And this play is really, really good. What he does, starts on the outside, see where the running back's going, and says, quickly changes directions and still able to get in there and make the play. Quite impressive for a guy like Doug Day, and he's been in the season a very long time. It seems like he's real agile. Maybe he cut the Twinkies out of his diet, being able to move around like he does. And right here, he starts sniffing. He taps into his DB skills right here, knocks the ball down out of the air, so the opponent doesn't get it. And again, him being able to cover the field like he should. He is one of, especially so far this season, being able to go sideline to sideline. He can play anywhere on the field and make sure that he is making plays. And now, watch all the plays that this man makes in this situation. With these seconds left, Doug Day is all over the place. This right here is a touchdown-saving tackle. If he does not make that tackle, it's a touchdown, and they're looking at a loss. And guess what? Now there's 8 seconds left, and you are going to see this man be in this play again right here, right? 3rd down, 8 seconds left. They're highlighting Doug Day right there. What he does, bumps the guy, gets a little bit of a tip from his defender, but then it still hits him in the face right here. You're going to see right there, bam, hits Doug Day in the face.
Yep.
He's like, I got it. If I can't catch it, my face is going to be there.
He remembers how to play DB.
Yeah, so here it is right here. Another Doug Day play. That's 3 plays in a row right here. We're going to see Doug Day making a play. And what he does right here, catches it, doesn't miss it, and decides to break some tackles and take it in for a touchdown. And I'm sorry, Eddie, but you had to call this play, and he ran it back. I know it was excruciating. Love you to death, Eddie. But guess what? This sealed the deal for the Riverhawks right here when they were looking at a loss. Doug Day making tons of plays right at the end to get them that win. What a game for Doug Day, and how he was able to help his team in those final moments too.
Right.
Not only throughout the game, but in those final moments, be the guy where the ball was, make the plays that need to be made, and got them to win.
Eddie in the chat right now, he says you don't love him, but we do though.
Well, I felt bad because I'm watching the game and I'm like, Eddie literally has to call a pick 6 in the most dramatic way possible.
He did. And he did a great job.
Probably the longest pick 6 he's ever seen in his life.
105 yards worth of just watching him run away with it.
But I'm like, man, I feel bad for him. I didn't need to bash him like that, but it's all in good fun. But I was like, man, I felt bad for him. I'm like, you got to watch that man run 105 yards.
And I also want to touch on another comment. Ryan Davis in the chat says Bravo had 3 interceptions and 2 pick 6s. Not all stats are created equal.
No.
So is 3 picks and 2 of them going for touchdowns good? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's good. Does that mean he's all around the best defensive player of the week? No, it does not.
But we also, right, so Anchorage, right?
Hmm.
Ryan Davis and the squad, right? So, and also I think, hey, look, you got to win when you do it too. So, not saying who the other person had, but I like this game right here. He was all over the field right here, and he made plays right at the end that mattered. That actually does it. So it's the big plays in the big
It's the
moments.
totality of it
Yeah.
all.
So
That
I,
last drive alone was good enough for Defensive Player of the Week.
yeah, and
3 touchdown saving plays in a row. That, which
he did
which
it.
which spelled the difference in the game.
They would have lost.
Yeah, they would have lost. So,
So
congratulations to Deezer Powell and Doug Day, your offensive and defensive player of the week. And $5 super chat.
oh
If we super
man,
chat enough money again this season, will we get karaoke? Yes. I got to look to see how much we actually had in week one because we can have it be cumulative. I'm more than happy to let
well,
it.
how much we going to be accumulative?
Why? It was I think we said $100 the last time, and then somebody like it wasn't a Mike O'Neill. No, so Mike O'Neill or Tyler Falk. I think Tyler just paid the whole bill, and we sang "Happy Birthday" to Mojo McLean.
It's wild.
Yeah,
It's
good
wild.
times. But sure, yeah, we'll just have to do some tabulating. But we'll do silly stuff for money. Why not? But let's talk about the week 3 schedule because hey, it is time to leave week 2 in the rearview mirror and let's get into week 3. There it is on your screen. Beautiful graphics, love it. We've got our first game of the week coming up in just about a half hour's time. DC at Washington. Gerald and I are going to call that one. Really looking forward to it. And in the same block, we've got Oklahoma City and Bossier City. Both teams currently winless. That O has got to go, Matt Wilson would say. Brandon Walters, Rochelle Colston get to call that game for one of those teams to get their first win on the season. The other's going to fall to 0-3, though, and that stings. At 9:45, we've got Albuquerque at Anchorage. Camera duty, Anthony Ellison on the call. And at 10 p.m. in that block, Florida at Fort Worth. The Mike and Mike Show, we've got Michael Torello, Mike O'Neill on the call for you. On what's going to be a frigid Saturday, at least in the Northeast, we've got Pittsburgh at Houston. I don't think Houston's going to be all too frigid, so kudos to the Riverhogs for heading south.
They made the right choice.
They sure did. Eddie Gage, DJ Kilgannon on the call at 6:45 p.m. Eastern. We've got Carolina at Detroit. That one's going to be a cold game. Ethan Muslin, Mark Lopez will call that one for you. At 9 p.m., we've got Chicago at Arizona with Jacob Clear and Wade Phillips. And then this is it, Gerald. The game that we have decided is the game of the week. Los Angeles, 2-0 at Minnesota, 2-0. Tyler Falk, a Minnesota native, and Brett Solberg get to call that one. There better not be any bias coming out of Tyler's call. I didn't put that Minnesota connection together until just now, but we'll see. And then, of course, you've got the Monday Night Spectacular, Mexico City at Birmingham. The Hellhounds have their home opener. I get to ruin it for them. It's going to be great times for all, mainly the Aztecs. Cameron Irvine and Charles Doherty get the pleasure of that one. So looking forward to all those games, especially that Los Angeles at Minnesota game, because we called that one our game of the week. So why don't we talk about that one in a little bit more detail? And Gerald, I got to tell you, I am so excited that we finally get to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers.
I remember when we were talking about it right during the week, but you know what game we're gonna pick? You're like, dude, I'm so excited about this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I like it too.
Yeah.
It's usually like it's a huge letdown, but it hasn't been so far.
Absolutely. We've talked for seasons about certain teams like Oklahoma City and like Los Angeles that we want to be able to talk about them more. And season 25 started with Los Angeles saying it was time to change the narrative. That was their mantra for season 25. And they would go on to win only one of their first 8 games that season, not really changing the narrative at all.
Mm-hmm.
And but to close the season out, they split those last 4 games. They went 2-2. So this season, though, they've started 2-0 for the first time since their inaugural season as the Lycans back in season 16. So it's been about 5 years. They got wins over Florida on the road and then at home last week versus Washington. Now they take on the 2-0 Minnesota Legend, though, so another undefeated team. However, if you look past this game, Gerald, their next upcoming opponents, 4 of those opponents after Minnesota are currently a combined 1-6. So there's a chance that Los Angeles has some really good opportunities ahead. Change the narrative indeed. Minnesota, though, they're here now, right? They're here this weekend, and they're looking to spoil this party for LA. Minnesota themselves, they've traditionally started off slow on seasons. Even though that they've made the playoffs in 6 of their last 7 seasons, they've only started off 2-0 one time ever in their whole history. They lost the season opener in each of the past 4 seasons in a row. This season, not so much. They played both week 1 and week 2 on the road. This is going to be their home opener this week. And even though they played both of those games on the road, they won both of them by multiple scores. They took down Albuquerque by 10 in the place that you used to not be able to win on the road. And then they went down to Miami and just crushed them by 27 points. So, two teams, both having great starts to their season so far. And on Saturday night, one of them is going to go to 3-0. The other one gets their first loss.
Look, and what a start by the Lycans this
Yeah.
season. Yes, I have confidence in them this season,
Yep.
right? You was like, what? LA on the road in
Yeah.
week 1?
Oh, I thought
They
you were
went in
nuts.
there and they
Yep.
did it, right? Look, and they can match their best start ever with a win this week, right? So their best start ever, like you mentioned,
Was
was way
3-0,
back
yeah.
then, was like 3-0. And they can also match their win total from last season by winning this week,
Yep.
right? Look, and they have done it with a really efficient offense behind Silly Richardson. Believe it or not, because he was kind of out of sorts a lot,
Yep.
a lot lately. But guess what? He has been the most efficient quarterback so far this season, and he has he ranks number 3 in completion percentage in the league with 71% of his passes being complete, along with having the number 1 QBR in the league
Triple
at
digits.
115.8.
He's crushing it.
Look, and guess what? He has thrown 0 interceptions this season,
I'm jealous.
which is great for him. Look, and with him being as efficient as he has been, it has opened up the run game for, you guessed it, the Silent C, Darius Iniguez, right, coming in there. And he is number 4 in rushing and also number 1 in touchdowns this season
Sure
for
is.
a running back, right? And offensively, they have a top 5 third down offense as well. So they are getting it done. They are look, they have put together a pretty darn good game plan for their opponents so far, right? Could be the start of something good. And they have had no turnovers yet this season offensively. So that's really, really good for them on the offensive side.
It is. It's a fantastic start to the season for them offensively. Defensively, you look at the stats, they're not necessarily, just lighting up the stat sheet. They're not blowing people away, but they are playing good enough to get the job done. And in some stat categories, they are top 5.
Yeah, and like I said, and like you mentioned, right, they're in the pass defense, they're ranked 21st. First in total defense, they're ranked 20th. That's darn near the bottom. But like you mentioned, they're getting the job done, right? They're top 4 in sacks in the league, and it's led by defensive end Selwyn Lane. He has 3 sacks on the season already through these 2 games. Look, and TFLs, right? They are also top 4, and they're number 2 in takeaways, and number 1 happens to be their opponent defensively in Minnesota this week.
But being number 1 in takeaways with giving away the ball no times yourself, you're going to be number 1 in turnover
Correct.
differential.
So, and this is the thing, and they are number 1 in turnover differential as well. LA is. The front 7 have played the line of scrimmage extremely well. They must continue this type of success on the front, with the front 7 to make sure they can keep this momentum going, right? Look, the pass defense is my only concern, but you're 2-0, right? And much like last week, this is an early test for them, right? Given the opponent they beat last week, this is another test for them, a 2-0 team. And the key players for this squad, Sully, stay efficient and mistake-free. And the front 7 on defense, keep generating that pressure to force those mistakes that got you to number 2 in takeaways.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a tough test for them, but if they can get past Minnesota 3-0, I'm looking at these next few games, and I got to tell you, when we're making picks, there's probably going to be some picks that I'm finally going to be able to say, oh yeah, Los Angeles is taking this one. So I'm excited to see what they do if they can continue this sort of play that they've got going on. Minnesota, they're going to be a tough opponent, though. They lost a couple pieces. Matthew Alvarado gone. You got Mickey Malillo gone, but the core, the bulk of their roster is still in place, and they've started out really well.
Yeah, look, and like you mentioned earlier, they convincingly beat their last 2 opponents by combined by 31 points. 37 points, and like you mentioned, both of those wins were by multiple scores. So and on the road, it's tough to win on the road in this league. Everybody knows it, right? and they have seemingly turned back the clock with that ball control type offense that they've employed and that smothering type defense,
Yeah.
right? So look, they hold on to the ball with the time-consuming drives, and their defense has a knack for just choking out the. I have no other way to put it. They're just choking out the opposition right
Yeah.
now, right? And what they're doing, they also have the number one scoring defense, only allowing 12 points a game. And quarterback Johnny Reno has been really efficient in the pass game as well, much like Sully. And his favorite target was your offensive spotlight player of the week, and Deezer Powell,
It's
who
getting it
is
done.
playing out of his
Yeah,
mind
absolutely.
and catching everything. Like you mentioned, number one in receptions, number one in TDs on the season so far. Look, and that's all. Look, and that's not even including Colin Hart, who is the sixth best rusher
Yep.
in the SFL right now. The defense leads the SFL in takeaways with their cornerback Johnny Bravo leading the SFL with 4 interceptions,
Yeah.
and he has pick sixes to add on top of that. So
Yeah.
I mean, look, and
Honorable mention for defensive player of the
right,
week.
look, I know, but I'm like, man, I had to give it the other way.
Oh
But look,
yeah, I
that's the thing.
agree.
Look, and Johnny Bravo, he's playing really well, which is why they get themselves in the situation they are. But look, if they are playing really good football right now and they continue to do that, we can be looking at Minnesota as a team that we've seen in the past,
Yeah.
right? Get in there, dominate the division. You're right. They made the playoffs every season except for last season,
Yep.
right? Where they had actually a losing record. It's the second time they're losing record. They got in the playoffs last time, but
Yeah.
they can be really dangerous if they keep this up. So the key players, Reno, stay efficient, right? And try to attack. I'm going to call it, I don't mean no defense to LA. They have a poor pass defense right now,
Right.
and they're going to try to attack that pass defense, but be cautious because they can take the ball away. And the secondary, what they're doing and the picks they're getting
Yeah,
and the turnovers
Bravo
they're
and
causing,
company, yeah.
keep up that intensity, and you could actually throw Sully off his game, and maybe he throws another pick.
He might.
His
He
first one
might.
of the
I was
season.
gonna say he hasn't done it yet this season, but there's certainly a chance it's going to happen at some point. He's not going to be able to play perfect the whole way. That game Saturday night at 9:15 p.m. Eastern time. I think the thing that's the most exciting about this game for me is one of these teams is going to end up 3-0 after this week, and we're going to be talking about them potentially being a powerhouse, and that could actually be LA. And I love it because they've been wanting to change that narrative. Congratulations. If you win this game, you've changed the narrative in my mind, at least. I can tell you that much. So, but let's get into the game that we've got coming up. It's just about 17 minutes away. This is the game to kick off week 3, and it's another West versus East battle, just like LA and Minnesota. So we've got the 2-0 DC Dragons. They head across the country. They're going to take on the 1-1 Washington Trident. And DC, they looked really solid in their opener down in Raleigh. They played against the Skyhawks, and they handled them pretty convincingly. They beat them 24-10.
Right.
Things were a little tighter last week at home as they hosted the Mexico City Aztecs. And it was a back-and-forth game, came down to the wire. A lot of quarterbacks running on both sides. Morrison tried to get it done. We just came up just a little bit short, so congratulations to DC getting that 1-point victory. They narrowly escaped with that win. Washington opened the season by hosting Oklahoma City, who, like we said, they still look lost.
Right.
I can't wait to finally someday be able to talk good about them. But right now they look lost. They got absolutely crushed. Last week, they were on the road. We talked about it already. They visited L.A. in week 2, and L.A. able to defeat the mighty Washington Trident. So both teams are anxious to stay in the win column. D.C., they've been wanting to repeat at minimum what they started last season, starting off 6-0. And Washington, they're hoping to get back to a winning record here early on in the season. So statistically, if you look at the team stats, DC, even though they are the undefeated team, Washington looks like the team to beat because they are leading in numerous categories. But that Oklahoma City game in week 1, that skews the numbers sometimes because when you have a game that's just that dominant, yeah, you're going to rack up those stats.
Correct.
So are those categories simply skewed by that game? As Matt Willson would say, there's only one way to find out, and that's on the field. But let's break it down. And what are you seeing from these two teams?
The Dragons are starting off hot again this season, right? As you mentioned, last season they started out 6-0. They're 2-0 this season. Look, and they're coming off an impressive win, in my opinion, against a 3-time total champion Mexico City last week, right? And you guys were same last season, went to the championship 3 times in a row, right? And that's not anything easy to do for any team, right?
Ooh.
And they've done so by playing extremely good defense, complemented by a relatively mistake-free offense, right? DC has the number one pass defense, along with the number four scoring defense and the number four total defense, right? The defense have been great thus far with applying pressure to the opposition. And guess what? They have 6 sacks, 21 TFLs, 5 interceptions from 5 different players on that defense through 2 games.
Yeah.
Linebacker Chris Britton III and free safety, I'm going to call him slash linebacker, Gary Clem, they've been the bright spots on the defense as the top tacklers for the unit.
Yeah.
This unit, they're both top 8 in tackles on the season. Shabazz Synergy on the offensive side. He's top 8 in nearly every category at QB with only 1 interception thrown. And this is the part that kind of concerns me. I'll touch on a little bit later. He is also the team's leader in rushing.
Yeah, we couldn't stop him last week.
Right. So look,
Ran all over us.
and as usual, his favorite target is Lauren Prococo, right?
Yep.
In the passing game, she's going to do her thing. He's going to find her. But like I mentioned, the run game right now gives me worry.
Reason for concern.
Especially when your leading rusher is your quarterback. But it's a long season. We're going to see if they're going to improve there. They rank 13th in rushing as an offense right now. So, and their key players, Britton and Clem, they have to continue to play at a high level. That gives you really good defenders at the second and third tier levels. And if they can continue to play that way, I think they can shut down, what Washington may bring, right? And the offensive backfield with their running backs and fullback, say Harrison and Stellar, right? One or all of them are going to have to take the load off of Synergy rushing. If not, I think it might spell trouble because we already know we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get hurt if they run too much.
Right.
Right. And we've seen Chicago try to employ that too. It did kind of work, but then once people adjust to it, it tends to fail. So they need to come through and actually get the run game going a little bit better on offense.
Yeah, I would agree. So I'm interested to see if they're able to make some adjustments or if we're going to see a lot more of Shabazz Synergy running tonight. Just how they end up playing out this offense in this upcoming game. Let's talk about Washington. They're 1-1. They started out the season like we talked about, just absolutely crushing Oklahoma City. Poor Oklahoma City. But you talk about trap games, and you look at teams where like Oklahoma City, they did really bad last season. Los Angeles, they've done really bad for a few seasons now. Could Washington have been looking past LA a little bit because they did so good against Oklahoma City? They're like, we got LA. Could that have been a trap game? They certainly got caught off guard and got caught by surprise. LA getting the win.
Yeah, and that's the LA got the win, right? And like I said, you mentioned they dominated the crap out of a poor OKC team, and it is what it is, right? Look, but they have been pretty good on offense, right?
Yes.
I know a lot of statistical stuff comes from that first game. But they didn't look too bad last week either, right? In my opinion, right? Yeah, look, they had a couple of picks and everything.
Oh, they were close. They almost won.
But they did good, right? So the number 5 in total offense, a little bit skewed. Number 3 in scoring offense, right? We know they put up a ton of points and everything else. You can go call that what you will, right? But they do. But all that is due, in my opinion, the way they are 1-1 and how they played the first week and they played in the second week, played tough last week, is due to the elite play by former Revs, quarterback Tommy
ridiculous.
Utah, and running back Dwayne Salmons, right? Utah, look, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the SFL.
Yeah.
He's the top quarterback with 74% completion, along with the number 2 QBR, 114.6, just right behind, the guy who was in first place. Look, and he has been extremely efficient. Salmons, number 3 rusher in SFL.
Yep.
Right, and is averaging 4 yards per carry. That's not even mentioning Christopher Dean, who is number 7 in rushing in the entire league.
2 top 10 rushers.
So, look, the offense can be dangerous on the ground and through the air, right? So, they got, they are a tough unit to actually game plan against from a defensive standpoint. So, we're going to see how DC is going to combat that.
Yeah.
Up next later tonight. So, we're going to see how they're going to handle the game offensively.
And the defense has been playing extremely well, too. Number 1 total defense, along with having the number 5 scoring defense. But again, I'll ask, is that just because of Oklahoma City, or are they real?
So, and this is the thing about it. Oklahoma City was not very good. We know that. But you know what they did not do as a defense? they don't take the ball away. They have one takeaway this season.
Yeah.
So they've got there just by just sheer skill and everything else. They've gotten themselves in a position to have those type of things. Number 5 scoring, defense. Number 1 in total defense. So they've done it in a very impressive way to me because they're not picking the ball off. They're not causing turnovers. They only had one. So they're just stopping the opposing offense and actually giving it back to their offense to put points on the board, right? And they employ one of the most talented second and third level defenders, right? In my opinion, and it's led by another former Rev, linebacker Jeff Melanishin, who leads the team in sacks, TFLs, and passes defended from his linebacker position, right? He's been all over the field making plays. They have not generated a whole lot of pressure from their front four. They have 0 sacks from them
That's wild.
at all, right?
Yeah.
But if they can, just imagine if they can get that front four to apply pressure so it gets them sacked, how good can they be?
Oh, it changes everything because
Right?
it's going to force some turnovers too.
Yeah, so and that's the thing. So if they can get that going, I think they'll be all right. Look, key players for me, Utah, continue to be efficient. Limit your mistakes. Last week you had some mistakes. LA forced them into the situation they want to be in. And running backs, Dean and Sammons, they both average over 4 yards per carry. Keep that output up, and I think you can have some success. And defensively, on the front four, if they can generate some pressure to force those mistakes that they have not gotten, they might find themselves 2-1.
They very well may.
After tonight.
They very well may. Quick question. How long have the Revs been gone?
It doesn't matter.
All right.
They're still relevant.
They're still relevant. All right, let's talk about the picks. We should have made picks in week 2, even though we knew the show wasn't going to be on. We should have at least made
You thought
picks.
about it the same time I did. It was like game time.
Yeah. $4.99 super chat from Matt Wilson's mother, Z-Bull 3963.
Oh.
More cash for that new theme song with solos by Mike and Gerald.
Oh man.
No, what have we done? All right,
We've
go
doomed ourselves.
We have. We'll go back through. We'll let you know how far away we are from $100
Right.
when we start the week 4 show. But yeah, whatever. We'll sing out. It just depends on when and where.
Yes.
We'll see.
It'll
But we'll definitely do it though.
It'll
But in week 1, I went 5-3. You went 6-2. Congratulations! You're winning the pick battle for the first time ever.
Well, I always have a good start, and then I fail. Not this season. 100 games.
100 games.
100 games. 100
That's
wins.
Not happening. So we didn't make picks last week, but that was our week 1. Total. DC at Washington, we will not make a pick because we are calling that game, so we'll jump right ahead. Oklahoma City at Bossier City, couple of winless teams.
Yeah, Johnny Pickler's going back to Louisiana and Bossier City, playing for OKC, but man, they just have looked so bad.
Yeah.
I don't and Bossier City looked really good in
Yeah,
that
oh, yeah.
in that loss to Fort
It's
Worth.
just like last season, dude.
Right?
The
So,
poor
look, but-
Steamers.
If they lose against OKC, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but because they playing at home and they play really well, but I think they're gonna dominate. I no
do so.
question it's Bossier City.
I'm going to take Bossier City as well. I think that they've got to win this game. I think they've already got it in the bag before kickoffs even started. And if we're wrong, we might need to break down the next Bossier City game just so we can look at what's been going wrong.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Albuquerque at Anchorage. Who do you got?
Look, and this was a tough one for me, right? Look,
Yeah, me too.
like Albuquerque coming in, right, and what we thought what they could have been and what they have been, but they look so much like the old Atlanta Swarm squad to
Mhm.
me, right? So, and it's really hard to place them where they are. I don't think they even. I think they lost their identity so far, especially the last couple, even starting this season. Anchorage, new team on the block, but I do think Albuquerque goes into Anchorage. I do think they have the experience and they actually have the coaching knowledge behind it to fix what was broken and go into Anchorage and get their first win of the season.
I'm going to go with Anchorage because they just looked so darn good in week 1 and didn't look half bad in week 2 either. And Albuquerque, I don't know, 0-2 on the season. They just don't look like them. They don't look like the Albuquerque that was here the first couple of seasons after they made it out of the minors. Give me Anchorage in that one. Florida at Fort Worth. We all know you're picking Fort Worth.
Yeah, man, I just have no confidence in Florida right now. They just don't look like themselves. They look all out of sorts, right? And, when you have a lot of players leave, you got to start to question, hey, is there some sort of a weird dynamic happening in there from a coaching standpoint? And when players tend to leave the team, long-standing players leave the team, you got to think, hey, look, maybe they're not believing in the coaching direction right there. So that's why I don't have confidence for it. But Fort Worth looked really good last week and through a tough win, right? And Fort Worth always grinds out some stuff, and they are playing in the stockyards. They play really well there.
They do.
I know. I never beat this squad ever, no matter where they played. So, yeah, Fort Worth over Florida.
Yeah, I beat them once or twice, but not a lot. So they're a great team. Plus, I saw Nacho in the chat earlier. Fort Worth, give me Fort Worth. Woo, Toros. Last time I'll ever say that. I actually feel ill. Pittsburgh at Houston.
All right, so this was another tough one for me, right? I love me some Damon Simeon. My kid plays in Houston, having a fairly decent season so far after that one game.
Yep.
Man, Pittsburgh and the way that they won that grinded out game last week and came up big when they needed to. I have to take Louisiana North right here. They're going to go into Houston. And if they win this game, I'm like, hey, look, they have it because Houston's very hard to beat. They're a really good team. So Louisiana North for me right here. Pittsburgh Riverhawks goes into Houston to that warmer weather.
Yep.
They're going to be real nice and loose, not all stiff and cold.
There you go.
And guess what? They're going to go into Houston and win the game.
I don't think so. I think Houston's going to get the win. Houston's at home, and Pittsburgh was one Doug Day interception, one Doug Day tackle, one Doug Day pass deflection, and one Doug Day pick away from losing that game last week. And try to repeat that process. I don't know.
Big time players make big time plays.
Yeah, not every single game. I don't know, man. Give me Houston in that one. Carolina at Detroit. Who do you got?
Carolina's been
Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm going with Detroit. Right. I like what they did kind of last season from a defensive standpoint. They played stuff really well. And I just think Carolina still is trying to figure themselves out, even coming off what last season was. So I have to pick Detroit here. It was nearly a toss-up, right? But I'm like, hey, I got to pick Detroit because I think Carolina still doesn't know what they want to be yet.
Yeah, ditto on everything you just said. Until Carolina gets in the win column and shows us what they can do, I'm having a hard time buying into what they're selling. Detroit, on the other hand, they're 1-0. They had a good season last season as well, and I think they're going to continue to build on that. And I think a game hosting Carolina is a perfect opportunity to do that. Give me Detroit. Chicago at Arizona.
All right, so I got to go with Eddie Gage in Arizona, right? Because even though Chicago got a running back, it's like they got a good one.
Yeah.
Real good one.
Frets,
and everything else. They just didn't know how to use them, I guess.
They're learning.
Because it's like
the mad scientist is still stirring the pot, trying to figure it out.
It's going to bite me in the butt, maybe, because they're going to might figure it out like during the bye week. Yeah. But I have to go with Eddie Gage, man. Like I just think he's just too good of a coach, and he game plans for teams so well. Yeah. And it's coming off of games where he lost pretty big against Vancouver week 1, came back and had to win last week, and I do think he's going to continue his momentum. He's back at home right here, right? Yeah. He's back at home, right in his backyard, playing a team from his hometown area, right? Chicago. Yeah. I know he wants to beat that team because he moved out of there. He's like, get out of my city. I don't want to think about it no more. But look, I do think Arizona's going to come through. I just think Eddie Gage has a better game plan for opponents like this.
Arizona lost big to Vancouver in week 1. Chicago was this close to beating them. And now these two teams go head-to-head. But give me Arizona anyway. Eddie Gage, Arizona Scorpions, Ashley Jackson, the whole crew at home. Give me Arizona. Los Angeles at Minnesota.
Yeah, look, I believe in L.A. I'm telling you, I believe in L.A. They did it on the road in week 1, and I do think they're going to do it on the road in Minnesota right here. I think they found whatever secret sauce they were looking for toward the end of last season. They're continuing that this season. Sully's got it going on right now. He's got the run game going good, and the defense is playing well for him as well. I do think whatever they got together, right, Sully's doing all the coaching himself. I do think he's come this season with a clear head, clear mind, and they're going to go and win. It's going to be another close one like they had last week, but they are going to beat Minnesota.
This is going to be a close game. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a hard-fought game. I think in the end, it's the Minnesota Legend that go 3-0 after the first 3 games. Give me Minnesota. Mexico City at Birmingham, their home opener.
Look, home opener down in the South, right? But not too far south. Hats is going to have hair. Everybody in the stadium is going to have that hair plopped on their head like their Lego character. I want one. I might even be there watching this game. And guess what? Birmingham, I think they got it, right? Not that you guys are a bad team. I just think their home opener right here, the way they can scheme against the team defensively and the way they've done things offensively. Yeah. After last season, going into this season, it was almost a plug-and-play moving down south. I think they got you right here, Mike. Give me Birmingham. And I'm going to tell you, by 4, they're going to have to score a late touchdown and put you down by 4, 21-17, Birmingham Hellhounds.
Obviously, I'm picking the Aztecs and it's because we're going to win the game. So that's it. That's all of our picks, and that's all the time that we've got. It's time for kickoff. It's time for week 3. This has been the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show. For Gerald Smith, Cameron Irvine, and Ron Haynes, I'm Mike Dykes. Thanks for joining us. Get ready because SFL action starts next.